Welcome to Biomed Buddy. Today we're going to try to give you an overview of incubators in general. We are going to be using the Forma Scientific incubator, model number 3158. It's a fairly old incubator, an extremely easy incubator to troubleshoot and repair. First things, all incubators have one thing in common: they all have chambers. Those chambers can be heated in two ways. They could be air or a water jacket. The advantage to the air is the fact that it is quick. It's quick to get to the set point. As an example, 37 degrees. Whereas a water jacket incubator would take 24 hours to get to that temperature. In fact, that would be my recommendations, that if you're setting this up, is to put the water in it and let it go for 24 hours. The chamber usually has an outer door and an inner door. Most chambers that I've seen are all stainless steel. Inside the chamber of this particular unit, you can see a fan which maintains the CO2 in the chamber to the same level throughout it, and a CO2 detector. There's generally two types of detector. One is thermal and one is infrared. The thermal is what you're viewing here. If it was an infrared, you would see two LEDs, and by the way, that's an indicator that basically the CO2 sensor is working for the infrared. The outer door on this particular unit, and most of them, is heated. That's what the power line down here is for. It takes 120 volts, and it's one long heater throughout the door. Underneath here, you're also going to see a heating pad. That heating pad is how this instrument controls humidity. It doesn't have much of a control for humidity. It's simply you put a pan of water in the bottom, and you'll get 90% most of the time. So it gives you limited control. Some incubators have actually controls so that you can put a set point for humidity. On top, left to right, you've got the power on off switch. You've got a circuit breaker. You have a control here. This particular switch keeps it at 37 at all times. It's just that it's a common thing, common set point for most people. But if you have something special, you can throw it in into the bottom position, and then you use this knob to do your set point, as example 40 or whatever. Right here, this is simply an adjustment for you. So just a screwdriver, little teeny screwdriver. This allows you to do some calibration and set your set points. Right here you have a sample port that goes directly into the chamber so that you can use a Firelight to see what type of CO2, what's the percentage of CO2 in your incubator. This is the CO2 control. You have an alarm. That's if your CO2 gets too high. You have an inject LED. That tells when that's lit. That tells you that the instrument is calling for CO2. You have an on-off switch. You have a set or silence. By pushing it, you can silence an alarm. By pushing and holding it, you can change the set point of your CO2. Through that, we're using that screwdriver. You got a little pod here that you can change and set your CO2 set point. And also you have a spot here to zero it. And of course you have your display. Moving on to the right, we have a monitor and alarm. This is the first LED is for over temp. A set point, over temp set point of 38. When it goes over, if the incubator goes over 38, it will alarm. Below that you have an LED that says add water. And if you run low of water, that light will light. And it's simply telling you to add water. And this is common to most incubators that are water jacket. Then you have a set point right here that you're going to push this, and you are going to adjust, using the screwdriver, adjust your over temp value. Let's take a look at the electronics. Here is your monitor for your alarm. Please note that this simply pulls out. You push a button in the front of the instrument, and that whole module will come out just like the whole drawer comes out. That just saves you from doing it, getting into it from having to take the top off. And again, these pop off also and slide right out. Okay, on to the CO2 module. Again, you can see how this pulls right out, and I will point out that you've got a little pot over here that you can use to change your set point, or not your set point, but to change your gain of the instrument. That's a calibration, not a set point. Moving over to the tubing that goes to your sample port. This tubing goes right into the chamber. Then you've got your temperature module. Temperature module has a power coming into it, and then it has your thermistor. And this cable also goes to a triac, which is what controls the heater. I will mention that if you find out that this is all burned up, you change these as an assembly. Then you've got your circuit breaker and your on-off switch. You also have a transformer and a relay. This is the incoming line coming from your CO2 tank. It goes to an inject solenoid. This is very common. Almost all incubators have an inject solenoid, and this is what controls the CO2 going out to the chamber. Also, this has controls on here, and it's pretty much an AC fan. That fan has to run all the time. It is what circulates the CO2 inside the chamber, and that's very common to most incubators. They all have some way of circulating that air. Many of them have fans inside, as an example like this one. Oh, and let's not forget to mention the fuse. The fuse goes there to protect from high voltage spikes. And of course, if you see no displays at all, that's where your problem more likely is. Thank you much for attending this session of Introduction to the Incubator from Biomed Buddy.